adults, right? Okay. Just want to give you a heads up. I listen to AM radio in the morning on the way to work, about a 15-minute drive, so I catch the news a little bit. Today, in the Supreme Court, there will be oral arguments over the federal mandates for vaccines for employers that have more than 100 employees. The Biden administration has told OSHA, which is a government agency that enforces, safety and that sort of thing within the workplace. So states, businesses, and actually some religious leaders, churches have all sued, saying that the federal government doesn't have the power to mandate that people get a vaccine or they lose their jobs, or that being a requirement, a safety requirement for work. So that'll be really interesting. They're hearing oral arguments, as that will affect roughly 100 million American workers. Okay. Also, when it comes to the healthcare industry, so doctors, nurses, there's also federal mandates on that. So those people could lose their jobs as well. So what you're looking at is, an impact of about 120, 130 million people. So the Supreme Court generally takes its time to rule on things like this. Like normally you wouldn't find out till the summer what their decision is, but this mandate's supposed to go into effect on January 10th. So people that are not vaccinated might lose their jobs. So does the Wichita Diocese have more than 100 employees? Yeah, so that would include all the teachers here that are not vaccinated, if that mandate was allowed to go in effect. Now, they can do a thing where you test them every 7 days in order for them to work there if they're not vaccinated, which of course could get expensive. Yes. So that we'll be finding out what the Supreme Court says about that. I have my own opinions. Usually if you're going to do something like this, it would go through Congress and you would pass a law that you just don't give it to this government agency and they pass this regulation that affects more than 100 million people and their livelihoods. You know what I mean? It just seems a little bit too easy. Okay, so I have a feeling the Supreme Court will strike down those mandates and not allow them to stand. Okay, so that's my feeling, but I don't know for sure how they'll rule. Okay, so that's going on today in the Supreme Court. I would say we'd find out in the next 3 or 4 days how they rule on it. Okay, especially before the 10th when that rule is supposed to be implemented. Good. Okay. Why don't we just do this now? I thought about this on talking about this. You see number 24 on your sheet? Okay, that's what we were just talking about. So listen, everybody's got a different opinion on these mandates. Obviously, you probably know this, like you can't come to school here unless you have certain vaccines. You know what I mean? Like the polio vaccine, the measles vaccine and stuff like that. Now, here's the thing, guys. Polio vaccine and the measles vaccine have basically eradicated those diseases. Has the COVID vaccine, whether it's Moderna or Pfizer or J&J, have those eradicated COVID? So they're not vaccines. They're therapeutics is what they are. Now, they told us originally, they said, if you get this vaccine, you won't get COVID. Do you remember that? That was like 6 months ago they were saying that. Okay, well, that didn't happen. All right, and not to say they don't help, because it sounds like they do help, like you prevent you from getting really sick or being hospitalized. Are people that are vaccinated with 2 even booster doses, are they being hospitalized too? Some of them? Yeah, just probably not in the numbers of unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated type, because the vaccine only lasts a certain amount of time. Okay, just like when you get COVID, you have antibodies. Those generally last for a certain amount of time, or at least they show up. Okay, but your immune system builds and gets stronger as the more things you're exposed to, the more things you fight off, the healthier you are. Okay, so we have to get sick, right? I mean, that's part of the human experience is getting sick, and then you build up immunities to that, what you just got sick from. So you generally won't get sick from that same strain again. Everybody follow that, right? So should the government mandate this? Is COVID, I mean, more than 1 million people in the United States have died, I think, or 800,000, something like that, from COVID. It's a pandemic. I mean, it's a big deal. But how do you feel about the mandates? Okay, now in some cities in the United States, like New York, they have vaccine passports. Basically, that means that if you want to go to a restaurant in New York City, you got to show them that you're vaccinated. That's the passport. Okay. Now, in Europe, in many countries, like France right now, they're being extremely hard on the unvaccinated. So you can't do really hardly anything in France unless you're vaccinated. That would be a passport. Okay. So if you have the feeling that, hey, this, as President Biden said just a couple days ago, this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. That the unvaccinated are the ones that are spreading this. The unvaccinated, the ones that are putting everybody else in danger, that everybody needs to get vaccinated. There's no excuse, President Biden said, for not being vaccinated. Okay? Do you agree with that? Then you would say no. Okay? If you think that, hey, this is a personal choice, depending on your health, your age, what other underlying conditions you might have, then you're going to say, I'm opposed to that. Yes, I'm opposed to that. Does that make sense? Okay. Was I fair on that? Did I kind of give you both sides of that? Okay. All right. So good. We got one down there on number 24. We'll hop back up to number 6. Now, guys, this one's worded funny, so don't answer it yet. Let me explain this, okay? It says, limit the number of gun control laws. Okay, so listen. You all heard of the Second Amendment to the Constitution. We'll just start with the Constitution here. Let me quote it for you, okay? It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So let me start. A well-regulated militia. Now, when they wrote this in 1791, what was a militia? A militia was young men and old men from the community that would get together and train, learn how to fire weapons to protect the neighborhood. Okay, because back then, guys, in all 13 of the colonies, 12 of the 13 colonies, if you were a man, you had to join the militia. You didn't have a choice. So once a month or something, you would get together. They were called muster days. You get together, you learn how to march, learn different terms, learn some strategy, learn how to fire a rifle, that sort of, a musket. Okay, and so that you could protect your neighborhood against who? The natives. Well, later the British, yeah, and the French. The natives and the French, or what have you, right? So you had to join the militia. Okay, so when you read that in 1791, who was the militia? Well, it was the people, the farmers, the shopkeepers, the blacksmiths, everybody was part of the militia. Okay, so a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so what has the Supreme Court said about this? Because, guys, we have a lot of gun laws. Okay, can you bring a gun to school? No, it's against the law. There's a sign on the door, right? Okay, can you buy a gun, a handgun, at the age of 18? No, it's against the law. Can you buy a shotgun at the age of 18? Yes, that is not against the law. Okay, can you own a fully automatic machine gun in the United States? Yes, with a special license. Okay, if you don't have that special license, you're not allowed to have one. Are you allowed to own a semi-automatic? Yes, every other gun made is a semi-automatic. You pull the trigger. As fast as you pull that trigger, okay, that's how the gun fires, right? Okay, so we have lots of laws. Now, in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, back in the 1990s, there's so much gun crime there, guys. You know that, right? Especially in Chicago. They're setting records every year. And so they wanted to cut down on that. So they made it a law in Chicago that you're not allowed to own a handgun in the city limits. Okay? And because there was so much gun violence, and most gun violence is carried out by handguns. Okay? So you had a home, actually, they did this in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. In Washington, D.C., there was a guy named Heller. He was sitting at home one night with his family, and an intruder broke into his house with a gun. So the intruder broke two laws. He was possessing a gun in the city limits. He broke into somebody's house. Yes? Well, Heller, the homeowner, shot the intruder with a handgun. They arrested Heller, the homeowner, because he had a gun in the city limits. So he sued versus the District of Columbia. This is in the 1990s. The case actually was finished, I think, in 2005. And the Supreme Court ruled that that law prohibiting Heller from having a gun in the city limits of D.C. was unconstitutional. They said this homeowner had a right to own a gun based on the Second Amendment. Okay, so basically that says any of us, you guys will have to wait till you're 21 to own a handgun or buy a handgun. Okay, but once you become that age, you're legal to possess. And then in many states, you have laws that allow you to carry, open carry. You have that in Kansas. Can you walk around with a gun in Kansas? Yeah. Can you keep one in your truck? Yeah. Okay. The idea of what many states have passed these is that criminals are less likely to try and carjack you or, attack you if they think you may have a gun. I have my neighbor's a pediatrician. He's a doctor. Great guy. He's a Nazarene. They're really nice people. And he goes, I'm glad you park your truck in the front driveway. Because people that may think about robbing in our neighborhood, because you got a pickup truck, they probably think you got a gun. Like, I never really thought of that, Phil, but okay. Now, here's the thing, guys. The United States is one of the only countries in the world that you're allowed to do that. Okay? Now, countries like Britain and Australia and others have banned handguns. Okay? When in Britain they did it, did murder rates drop? You know what the number one way of killing somebody in London today is? Stabbing. It's crazy how many people get stabbed in London. I don't know about you. If you had a choice, you're going to get stabbed, say, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Or you're going to get shot once. I'm thinking I want to take the bullet. I'm serious. The thought of being stabbed to me is like, it gives me. Does that do that for you too? I don't like that. I mean, that's like, oh, I don't want that. Okay, I'm kind of being silly here, but let me say, okay, so the Second Amendment says your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Y'all ever heard of Wyatt Earp? Okay, Wyatt Earp's famous from Kansas. Okay, you've all heard of the Wild West. I know we don't do Westerns like we used to in the 70s. We used to have a ton of Western movies. But Wyatt Earp was a lawman, and they hired him in Dodge City, Kansas, to clean up Dodge City, because Dodge City was like, there was gunplay everywhere. People were dying daily in Dodge City. So they hired Wyatt Earp to clean up Dodge City. He went out there and he put a sign at the city limits. It said, if you come into Dodge City, you will surrender your firearms to the sheriff until you leave town, and then you'll get it back. Now, did that violate the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms? Was that an infringement? Yeah. Is the fact that you can't bring one to school an infringement? In a literal sense, it is. So we do have some laws, right? In fact, we have lots of laws. It's illegal in the United States to possess a weapon if you're a convicted felon. You can get 7 years in jail for even just possessing a gun if you're a convicted felon. Okay? You lose that right when you commit a felony. Okay? So we have lots of laws. Can you take a gun to a movie theater? Shopping mall? Not supposed to. Okay? What about church? Depends on the church. Okay? You guys have a police officer at your church in the mornings? During Mass? We do. We have a cop there. Okay? Just in case. I don't know if you heard about the situation in Texas happened a couple of years ago where this guy went in and started shooting up during a church service. Okay? Started just opening up on people. And one guy who was at church had a gun. He stopped him. Okay? How do you feel? I mean, do you think we talk about school shootings and stuff like that, right? First of all, many of you are new to my classroom, so let's just go ahead and talk about this. Okay, so you've probably done this in other classrooms, but if there's an active shooter in this building, they're going to try and tell us everything they can over the intercom, like where this person is, what's going on, that sort of thing. I remember when I first started teaching here, they had this code word, okay? Like there's a Lamborghini in the parking lot, and that means somebody's in here shooting. I mean, that's where it started, 20 some years ago. That was kind of where we're at. Today, it's like, hey, if somebody can get on the intercom and tell everybody what's going on, that's what has to happen. Okay. Now, I don't know if your parents taught you this or other teachers. The best thing you can do in an active shooting situation is get out of the building as fast as you can. Don't walk and run. Get out. This is a good room for that. Okay, because you can go through that door right there and go to Miss Lovelace's room and out to the 400 hallway. So if there's somebody here shooting that in this hallway, we go through that door. And then you run out that way and get out to the AC. You follow me? Okay. Now, if there's somebody in the 400 hallway, okay, then we go out here, not these stairs, but these over here. You don't even have to go into the 100 hallway. You can go out the front of the school there, go down those stairs over there. That's what we do for the fire drill. Okay. So this is a pretty safe room, even though we're upstairs. Okay. So you should pay attention to that in each classroom you're in during the day. Like, what's the quickest way out of this building? And then if you're in a room that you can't get out, then obviously we talked about barricade, locking the door, barricade, and fighting. You know what I mean? So we all get up against this wall, right? And then as soon as somebody breaches the door, pounce. Okay. I'll be at the front of the line. You guys can back me up. Yes. Okay. All right. So listen, guys, we have more gun violence in this country than any other country in the world. Hands down. Not even close. All you have to do is turn on the radio. There was a drive-by shooting northeast Wichita last night. Okay. Guns are used for malicious crimes. Now, I've never been a victim of a gun crime, so I can't speak to that. There are millions of Americans that have been victims of gun crimes. Okay. And I've never owned one. Now, we live in Kansas. You don't have to raise your hand here. Okay. But how many of you guys have a gun at your house? Like somebody in your house has a gun. Like hunting or something. Okay. Usually I get more hands than that. Okay, guys, I've never owned one until last year. When they did the lockdown, when they sent everybody home and we were having riots all summer long in different cities, okay, I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and get one. Okay, while I can. Okay, just for protection for my family. you know. And I was always nervous because, you know, I have kids. You know, my my son's off to college now. Okay, I have one at home, but you know, you just worry about that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So should we have more laws? Okay, guys, what if you look at mass shootings, for instance? Almost all of them, like a school shooting, most of these mass shootings take place where nobody else is allowed to have a gun. These are gun-free zones. So the perpetrator knows that nobody else is there to stop them, has a gun. So they have free reign. They're breaking the law. There is a law that's supposed to stop them from shooting up the school, but the law doesn't stop them. You can pass all the laws you want, and it's not going to stop people from violating. So which laws would prevent a school shooting? Well, the only one that would prevent that is not allowing guns at all. And you can't do that because we have the Second Amendment in the Constitution. So what law would prevent that? Now, we do have some laws on book, like on people that are have been institutionalized, like mental illness, that are not allowed to buy guns. They're supposed to go on a list, and there's a background check when you go to buy a gun. Okay, that if your name pops up on there, you're a convicted felon, you've been proved mentally ill. Okay, but how far do you take that mental illness? Okay, depression in the United States, the number of people that are diagnosed with depression is soaring in this country. So do you say if somebody's diagnosed with depression and they're on antidepressant drugs, we shouldn't let them have a gun? Some people think that should be a law. Some people think that if you're ever arrested for domestic violence, because most murders occur between people that know each other, and a lot of times it's within a domesticated situation. So if you're ever arrested for domestic violence, you wouldn't be able to own a gun. The government would confiscate that from you. Now, that gets a little tricky, okay? Because, guys, domestic violence, let's say you got a girlfriend, boyfriend situation, you're at the mall, you're with your boyfriend, ladies, and this beautiful girl walks by and your boyfriend's like, you're like, what's up with that? And you're one of those girls, right? You're like, super jealous. You like shove your boyfriend, and somebody sees it, and he's like, hey, pushes you back. And next thing you know, somebody calls the cops. That's a domestic violence situation. Somebody's going to jail. Now, you're not going to stay in jail for shoving somebody, but you just got arrested for domestic violence. You lose your right to bear arms. So you got to be careful. I mean, we're going to classify everybody with depression as mentally ill and take away their guns? What if you have ladies, and I want you to think about this because this happens to people. You ever heard of stalkers? So you got this guy that's like, you start dating this guy, it's good, and then you figure out this guy's really creepy, and I got to get away from this guy. But he really likes you, and he's not going away. You get a restraining order, you're scared for your life of this guy. Should you be able to own a gun to protect yourself? So you got to be careful on these laws. And guys, like I said, there's so many victims of gun crime. It's really sad for those people. And I pray to the Lord that never happens to any of you or me or anybody. But you have to be honest with yourself. Whenever there's a shooting like this, what law that doesn't already exist would have prevented it, other than gun confiscation altogether? Because anytime somebody pulls the trigger, they're breaking the law. There is a law against that. It didn't stop it. So, with the way this is worded, okay, limit the number of gun control laws. So if you want more laws, more restrictions, then you say no. If you're like, we have enough laws on the books right now, we need to enforce the ones we have, like convicted felons, cops should be looking for those guys, make sure they don't have guns. Enforce those laws. Get them off the streets, get them out of the hands of convicted felons, because they've already shown they're a criminal. Amen. So you have to decide here, if you think there's enough laws on the books, we just need to enforce the ones. Or if you want to like do away with guns altogether, say no. Okay. If you think, hey, we have enough gun laws, we need to enforce the ones we have, right there. Don't take away my right to keep and bear arms. Say yes. Bear with me how that's worded. Okay. All right, good. Any questions on that? Comments? Yeah.
In the school that's allowed to have guns?
See, that's a great question. Thanks. No, not yet. Not at this point. Now, you guys all know Slade, right? How do you feel about teachers carrying?
Yeah, I trust that. I kind of thought I'd be like, just check him out like a gun in his office or something.
We should give us house burger.
What about me? Would it bother you if I was packing? You guys have never seen my temper. I have a temper.
Yeah, but that temper's not gonna cause you to shoot someone. Like, you might punch somebody. You might punch somebody.
If a student like starts really disrespecting me, that's when I get upset. You know what I mean? That's when I really get pissed. And listen. I don't think so.
It would be tempting though, just like uncover your jacket.
Yeah, like, dude, hey, sit down, shut up. I wouldn't trust, I don't want that. But you know who I would trust is Slade. Okay, both his father, his son, grandpa, they're all in law enforcement. He's been around guns, hunting his whole life. He's about the most mild-mannered, nicest guy you'll ever meet. Even if he didn't even have to carry, he'd have one in his office in a safe, just in case. I would have no issue with that. But you know, some of our teachers, like Barber, man, that guy, you know, he's unpredictable. So yeah, not here, but in some schools, Jack, they are allowing teachers to carry. Yeah. Which some people are like, yeah, man. Then you know, the school shooter knows that teachers are packing. Chances of them coming in knowing that somebody else has a gun is less likely. I don't know if you think that way. Yeah. They have to be trained. I think it's in Arizona. That one of the school districts, after some school shootings, said, "Look, we're going to let teachers that want to be well trained and be able to carry into classroom." Yeah. It sucks that we even have to talk about that. You know what I mean? But it's part of being in the United States, guys. We are still the Wild West. We have more guns per capita than any other country in the world except Switzerland. Okay? Yeah, Switzerland, everybody has a gun.
Yeah, they don't fight.
That's right. Nobody messes with them. And think about this, guys. If somebody tried to invade this country, like with a military, we have the most well-armed citizenry in the world except for Switzerland. You know what I mean? Think about that. Somebody trying to invade us. We all have guns. We will destroy ourselves from within. We will not be destroyed from the outside. Unless it's a nuclear. Okay, moving on. Okay, guys, this one is interesting, okay? And be careful here. Don't answer it yet. Allow hate speech in the United States. Okay, the First Amendment, okay, says this. That you have, basically it says you have the freedom of speech. Yes? And what that basically means is you have the right to offend me. I have the right to offend you. Now, we're in a classroom in a private school right now, so be careful about doing that. And, by the way, we're all Christians here, and so we don't generally go around trying to offend each other. As Christians, we shouldn't do that. Okay? No, you be kind to your neighbor, okay? But sometimes, you know, you're going to speak your opinion, and that may offend somebody. Yes? I'm on number 7 now, and I may have offended some of you up through the first 7. I don't know, okay? But I have the right to, and you have the right to offend me. And so the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, does not protect your feelings. You've all heard the adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but, everybody's heard that? Okay. Words will never hurt me. Okay, that's what mom and dad used to tell me. Okay. And look, let's just start with the elephant in the room called the N-word. Okay, the N-word, right? So, should it be illegal for people to use the N-word, or maybe people that are not black to use the N-word? Make it illegal. Like you face a crime. Or should you make it a crime to criticize somebody's religion? That people will see as hate speech. Because in Canada, guys, you can go to jail for criticizing Islam. You guys know the Prophet Muhammad? You learned about that guy? Now, he had several wives, as young as what? 14? Younger than that, right? This is your prophet. Okay. Now, YouTube may censor this. Okay. But I think there's many parts of Islam that I disagree with, that I think are just plain wrong. There, I did it. That's hate speech in Canada. Okay? Arrest me. Can you do that in the United States? I can say whatever the hell I want. You know what I mean? You know what else? I can be a Nazi. I can be a commie. I can be a white supremacist. I can be a Black Panther. I can be a member of the KKK. I can be anything I want. This is America. We have freedom, freedom of expression. Now, some people don't like our country. Some people say America sucks, and they like to burn this in protest. Now, this symbolizes the United States of America. It symbolizes our history. It symbolizes the men and women that fought to protect our freedoms. It means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to me. If somebody burns this in protest, it really pisses me off. But you know what? It's called freedom of expression. It's protected by the First Amendment and free speech. You have the right to burn this flag in protest. And I will die for your right to do so, even though I disagree with it. So what's more important, your feelings about the flag or your freedom to express your own views? That's the difference. In many countries, you can go to jail for burning the country's flag. Not in the United States. We are free people. And when you start chipping away at those freedoms, who gets to decide what is hate? Who's going to be the thought police? I don't know if you guys read 1984, but you should, because yesterday's science fiction is today's reality. On college campuses, they will try and restrict your speech. They're not allowed to do that. Okay? Now, as you guys find, you will find out when we get done with this whole thing, the 25, that most of this classroom and most of the school leans to the right. When you get on a college campus, what you'll start to find is most of the people in college, especially the professors, lean to the left. So your opinions that you're very comfortable expressing here at Bishop Carroll may be seen as offensive to others. Let's just take the church's stance on gay marriage. The Catholic Church stance on gay marriage. Start talking about that on a college campus. They're going to try and shut you down. Okay? Don't let that happen. You need to stand up for people that think differently than you. Because I think I said this at the beginning. If we all think the exact same way, we're going to be a bunch of little fascists running around. You're not going to like the world if everybody thinks the same way. We need differences of opinion. Don't be afraid of somebody's speech. Challenge them on it. If you think somebody's wrong, educate yourself and challenge their beliefs and prove them that they're wrong. But don't shut down their speech. Okay? Don't be afraid of it. Prove to them that they're ignorant. Okay? I don't advocate for any of those groups that I just mentioned. The communists, the Nazis, the white supremacists, I don't advocate for any of those people. I think they're all stupid. They're all idiots. Okay? So, but you have a right to think what you want and say what you want. Now, if you harm somebody physically, that's different, right? There's laws against that. When it comes to speech, you may want to do away with hate speech, but the thing is, it's a slippery slope. Because who gets to decide? Because if you're Catholic and you believe that gay marriage is or, gay sex is an abomination, and somebody makes a rule that says you can't do that, that hurts gay people. Okay? Well, what is the truth? And depending on what you believe is the truth, which is what we learned from God, you're not allowed to speak the truth. That's been taken away from you. You are no longer free. Just like in China, you're no longer free. Just like in North Korea, you're no longer free. And in Canada, you cannot speak your own mind. Okay? I don't want to live in that country. Okay, like I said, I don't go around, trying to hurt people's feelings unless I'm on Twitter. And actually, I've tried to really, the last couple of years, I've really softened up. I don't do any politics on Facebook. Done with that. Because you just no. But Twitter's different. Okay. But I still try and be kind to people and just say, hey, look, think about what you're saying here. And show them that, try and show them that, they're wrong. Okay. I really try and be careful not to be jerk. Okay. So, good? You guys able to answer? So if you think we should have laws that prevent certain types of speech that hurt people's feelings. Some people say, this is new to me, but some people say speech is violence. You'll hear that on the college campus. Speech is violence. So then you might want to say no on this. If you're like, hey man, we're a free country, we have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, you can't limit speech. Now, the only place it's limited is libel slander. Okay, you guys, I don't know if you took journalism. That's when you lie about somebody, or you slander somebody. So if you're online and you're gossiping about another person, you can be sued for that if you're lying about them. Okay? And then the other one is you can't start a riot with your speech. Like the proverbial, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater when there's not a fire. You know what I mean? Because you cause a stampede, people get hurt. That's not protected. Okay? Obscenity generally is protected. Okay? In most cases. But not always. Okay, there's a lot of gray area with obscenity. Because what's obscene in Wichita, Kansas, may not be obscene in San Francisco, California. So you have to apply local community standards to obscenity. Okay. All right, so hate speech, you guys decide on that. Okay. We get out 40. Okay. Well, hey, we did pretty good. We got 3 done today. Moving right along. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody. That was funny.